The milkshake didn't just spill. It exploded on my head like a gunshot made of cold sugar. 1 second I was standing there with a foil-wrapped dessert in my hand. The next, something icy slammed into my scalp so hard I flinched before my mind even caught up. The diner lights blurred. People gasped. A chair screeched sharply against the floor. Then Alana's scream ripped through the room. "You embarrass me." Her voice hit harder than the milkshake. Sharp. Violent. The kind of scream that slices deep because it's coming from someone you carried into this world with your own breath. Phones flew up instantly. Chairs turned. The entire luxury diner shifted into a circle around us, hungry for spectacle, ready to feast on shame. Cold chocolate dripped down my forehead, thick and slow, rolling down my cheek in an ugly path that felt like a slap I didn't see coming. Alana stood over me, her eyes blazing like she wanted the whole room to burn. "You're useless," she shouted. "Useless and embarrassing." The Wrights sat across from her, watching like they'd been waiting for this scene all evening. Her mother-in-law smothered a smirk behind her napkin. Spencer, my own son-in-law, let out a low sound that wasn't laughter or surprise. It was agreement. The entire room felt it. I didn't speak, didn't wipe my face, didn't drop the dessert I'd baked with the same hands that fed her dreams for 25 years. I just stood there, frozen, milkshake dripping under my collar, cold pain threading through the only fine blouse I owned. Her gaze locked on the dessert in my hand, the same one she loved as a child. That was what pushed her over the edge. I took one breath, deep, slow, the kind you take when something inside you snaps clean instead of jagged. And with the calmest voice in the entire room, I said, "You'll reap what you sow." 5 words. Quiet. Even. Final. The diner went still. Even Alana's rage hesitated long enough to hear something she didn't expect. "My name is Rosalind Carter, and that was the night the daughter I raised treated me like a stain on her new life." Before I go on, if you're here with me, let me know where you're watching from. Sometimes the only thing that keeps a woman steady is knowing she's not telling her story alone. I turned away from her, not shaken, just done. My wet shoes left faint sticky prints across the polished floor as I walked toward the exit. The dessert slipped from my hand, hitting the ground with a dull thud no one cared to pick up. At the counter, a young server pretended to clean so her manager wouldn't notice her helping me. She pressed a folded napkin into my palm and whispered, "Ma'am, you didn't deserve that." The kindness almost broke something open inside me, not tears, just a different kind of pain. Outside, the night air hit my damp skin like a blade. Sharp, humbling, unforgiving. My phone buzzed in my purse. Once, twice, then violently, as if the device itself knew the world was about to turn. When I reached my car, I pulled it out with trembling fingers. The screen lit up through the droplets. "Someone uploaded your video." My heart thudded once, deep, heavy. Another notification came instantly. It's spreading, not slowly, not quietly, spreading like gasoline meeting flame. I stood there in the cold, chocolate dripping down my wrist, and felt something shift in me, steady, sharp, irreversible. This wasn't humiliation anymore. This was the beginning of the reckoning. The first thing I felt when I stepped into my apartment was the weight in my clothes. Cold milkshake clung to my skin, stiffening the fabric as it dried. I moved slowly, peeling off each. Peace like it was a part of the moment I couldn't bear to keep. The bathroom light was too bright, but I left it on. I needed to see myself clearly after being painted as nothing in front of strangers. Warm water hit my scalp, loosening the sticky sweetness that had dried along my neck. As I rinsed it away, something far heavier rose in its place. 25 years of doing everything I knew how to do for a child who believed my love was small because my wallet was. I remembered the early mornings before school when Alana hummed in the bathroom mirror with a plastic brush as her microphone. Back then, I thought her voice was the closest thing to a miracle I had ever held. I worked double shifts to buy her first real microphone. 3 months after that, I paid for her first studio session. The producer told her she had it, and from that day forward, her dream became my responsibility. There were nights I came home so tired I couldn't feel my legs, but I still sat at the edge of her bed listening to rehearsals, clapping like an audience she didn't have yet. Money went into lessons, transport, hair, costumes, things she needed to look the part when she stepped on any stage. When the bills didn't fit inside my paycheck, I made them fit anyway. I stretched myself until something in me fractured, and even then, I didn't stop as I moved from the bathroom to the bedroom. Wrapping a towel around my shoulders, another memory slid in without permission. It was years before she met Spencer, long before the Wrights. We were walking through a mall, and I said something small, something harmless to the cashier. I can't even remember what it was, but I remember the way Alana's hand tightened on my arm as we walked away. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Mom," she said, her tone low and sharp. "Don't talk like that in public. It makes me look bad." I felt the sting deep in my chest. I apologized without thinking. "Sorry, baby. I didn't mean anything by it." She didn't answer. She only sighed, like she was tired of fixing me. That was the first shift. The first cut. The first time she made me feel like the mother I was wasn't enough for the daughter I raised. The towel soaked up the last drops of water from my hair, but it couldn't touch the old wounds surfacing behind them. Over the years, little moments piled up like stones. The way she corrected my pronunciation in front of her friends. How she once pinched my elbow at a show and whispered, "Sit still, don't draw attention." The nights she slammed her bedroom door after I asked to pray with her before a big performance. Always something small. Always something that should have made me speak up, but didn't. I just wanted peace. I sat on the edge of my bed, letting the memories settle like dust. Part of me tried to understand where things changed. Another part whispered that maybe they never changed. Maybe her heart was growing away from mine long before I noticed. My phone lay face down on the dresser, silent for a moment. Then it lit up again, casting a faint glow across the room. I reached for it slowly, my fingers still trembling from everything that happened at the diner. A new message sat at the top of the screen. Not an apology, not concern, not remorse. Just 4 words, typed in the same tone she used to cut me down when she was 16. "You embarrassed me tonight." The air left my chest in one long, hollow breath. There it was, the real wound. The milkshake wasn't the first hit. It was just the first one the world got to see. I sat at my small dining table long after midnight. The room dim except for the soft lamp in the corner. The towel around my shoulders had gone cold, but I barely felt it anymore. My phone lay face up on the table, her message still glowing like a wound. "You embarrassed me tonight." I stared at it until the letters blurred, not from tears, but from a kind of hollow exhaustion that settles deep in the bones. A soft knock pulled me out of myself. Only one person knocks like that, gentle, careful, as if they're afraid their touch might break something. When I opened the door, Mr. Lawson stood there, his coat still damp from the rain. He was more than a property consultant. He'd been a friend to my family for years, long before Alana ever thought of microphones and stages. I saw the video, he said calmly, as if he didn't want to add weight to the night. Are you all right? I stepped aside for him to enter, my silence answering more than words could. He set his briefcase down and looked at me in that quiet way people look when they're searching for the version of you they used to know. You're shaken, he said softly. Sit. Let's talk. I sat across from him, tugging the towel closer as he opened the briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. He didn't slide it to me yet. He just held it, studying me first. You still have the deed, right? He asked. I nodded. It's here, locked away. He exhaled, relieved. Good. That house is yours, Rosalind, not hers. Not the rights. Yours. Hearing it said aloud made something inside me shift. I knew it, of course, but tonight it hit differently, sharper, heavier. My mind drifted back to the day I handed her those keys. It was warm that afternoon, her wedding day. She stood in her gown, full of life and new beginnings, the world stretching wide in front of her. I held the keys in both hands like they were made of gold. When she turned toward me, her veil catching the sunlight, I felt proud enough to burst. This is for you, I told her. A fresh start, a place of your own. She gasped, covering her mouth, laughing, spinning, hugging me. I didn't give her ownership, only permission to live there, but in that moment, it felt like I'd given her a kingdom. I wanted her to start married life without burden, without rent, without the stress I carried most of my own years. If someone had tapped me on the shoulder that day and whispered that pride would grow inside that house like mold, I wouldn't have believed it. I returned to the present when Mr. Lawson spoke again. Rosalind, he said, choosing his words carefully, I need to tell you something. It came to me tonight. He reached into his folder and pulled out a printed screenshot of an online post. Alana's face filled the page, smiling, bright, confident, standing in front of the Heritage House. The caption beneath it twisted my stomach. Bought our dream home at 27. Hard work pays off. Alana, right. My breath tightened. She told the Wrights she owns the house. He continued. Posted it publicly months ago. It's still up. I stared at the picture. Her smile looked different now. Not joyful, not grateful, but proud in a way that pushed me out of the frame entirely. It's a lie, he added. A dangerous one. And if they're treating that property as hers, you need to protect yourself. I leaned back in my chair. The towel around my shoulders suddenly felt too heavy, too warm. The truth was clear. She hadn't just pushed me away. She had erased me. Mr. Lawson slid the entire file toward me. His tone shifted, steady and certain. If you want your home back, he said, the law is on your side. His words settled in the room like a door unlocking in the dark. The morning air felt thin when I woke up, like the room wasn't sure if it should hold me or let me fall through. I hadn't slept more than an hour, just enough for the humiliation to settle into the cracks of my chest. The dried milkshake was gone, washed away, but the memory of it clung to me heavier than anything I'd ever worn. I sat at my dining table again, the folder from Mr. Lawson still lying where he left it. Every time I looked at it, my throat tightened. That house was the last thing my parents left me before they passed. Not just wood and walls, but reputation, memory, and roots. I never imagined I'd be forced to defend it against my own child. A soft buzz on my phone pulled my eyes away. It was a text from Lawson. "I'm downstairs." I brought the paperwork. I opened the door before he knocked. He stepped in quietly, carrying a single envelope instead of a briefcase this time. His face was steady, calm, but I could tell he'd seen the video spreading even more overnight. People online were already arguing, some defending me, most condemning Alana. That wasn't my concern anymore. My concern was the house she had turned into a throne without earning a crown. "Rosalind," he said gently, setting the envelope on the table, "this is the authorization form for lease preparation. Once you sign it, everything moves fast." My fingers pressed into the chair, steadying myself. "How fast?" "Within 24 hours, he answered. "Officers will have to verify possession to begin the leasing process. It's standard procedure. 24 hours. A quiet countdown, starting from the moment my pen touched the page. I lowered myself into the chair. Lawson slid the form toward me. The words printed on it were simple enough, but reading them felt like trying to swallow stone. He didn't rush me. He didn't speak. He just waited, the way people do when they know a decision is bigger than paperwork. When I finally took the pen, my hand trembled. Not because I doubted the legality, not because I feared retaliation, but because no mother imagines her life leading to a moment where she has to reclaim her home from the child she gave everything to. The signature line blurred, then cleared. I placed the pen down and signed my name. The moment the ink settled, something in the room shifted, a quiet, irreversible shift, the kind that builds storms without making noise. Lawson took the paper, slid it into the envelope, sealed it with a firm press of his hand, and stood. "Once this is dropped off, things will move fast." He squeezed my shoulder on the way out. It wasn't comfort. It was confirmation. When the door closed behind him, I sat there alone again. My hand still shook slightly, the memory of the signature burning across my skin. This wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge. It was grief carried into action. Hours later, in a different building across town, for uniformed property officers stood around a desk as Lawson handed over the envelope. One of them, a tall man with a clipboard and a no-nonsense expression, opened it and scanned the form. "Verification needed within 24 hours, he said to the others. "Owner is requesting immediate possession preparations. Address listed here." Another officer leaned over, reading the street name. His brow lifted slowly, his mouth tightening with a low whistle he didn't let escape. "This is a big property," he said. The clipboard officer nodded, tapping the envelope against his palm. "Let's get ready to move." Alana woke up late the next morning, sunlight slicing through the blinds in thin, stubborn lines. Her head still buzzed from the adrenaline of the night before. She replayed the scene in her mind, the gasp from the diners, the look on my face, Mrs. Wright's approving smirk. The memory made her laugh under her breath as she rolled out of bed, stretching like someone who believed the world still adored her. She didn't notice Spencer watching her from the doorway. "You're in a good mood," he said, arms folded. She shrugged, brushing past him toward the kitchen. "People need to learn boundaries. My mom crossed one. I handled it. Spencer didn't respond. He just watched her pour orange juice like he was studying a stranger. Alana grabbed her phone, smirking as she opened her social media. She expected a few comments, maybe some support from friends who always hyped her up. What she saw instead froze her fingers mid-scroll. The video was everywhere, not just reposted, everywhere. A fan page had slowed it down frame by frame. Someone had zoomed in on her face as she screamed. Another clip captured my stillness, my 5 quiet words. People online weren't laughing with her. They were tearing into her. Why would she do that to her mother? This is disgusting behavior. Talent doesn't excuse cruelty. Nah, she lost me. She swallowed hard and refreshed the feed again. More reposts, more outrage, more stitching and commentary from people she'd never met. Her manager called before she could process the damage. The moment she answered, his voice came sharp. No greeting, no warmth. Alana, what happened last night? She paced the kitchen, fingers tightening around the phone. My mom embarrassed. No, he cut in. You embarrassed yourself. I woke up to 30 emails. 30. People are furious. She frowned. It's not that serious. It is when your audience is mostly older women who respect family. The story is blowing up fast. Promoter from the Lagos showcase already canceled your slot. They don't want you headlining anything right now. Her breath caught. What? Why? Because you poured a milkshake on your mother in public. His voice cracked with frustration. Do you know how bad that looks? She opened her mouth to defend herself, but her phone buzzed with an incoming email. Another, then another. Her notifications were hitting back to back. Check your inbox, her manager said. She did. At the top, a message from a brand collaboration she'd fought hard to secure. Due to recent online activity, we are putting your contract on hold pending further review. Her throat tightened. She clicked another email, same thing. And another. Every partnership, every opportunity she'd lined up was slipping through her fingers. Her stomach twisted as she scrolled through the comments again. Fans weren't defending her. They weren't rationalizing it. They were angry, disappointed, done. She refreshed her page a third time. The video had passed 1.2 million views. Her hands began to shake. How is this happening? She whispered, more to herself than anyone. Spencer stepped closer, studying the panic rising in her eyes. You thought humiliating your mother would make you look powerful? It wasn't like that, she snapped, voice cracking. He stared at her for a long moment, then pulled out his own phone. Look at what people are saying. Look, she didn't want to, but he held the screen in front of her. Comments streamed under one post, the boldest one sitting at the top. Why is she claiming she owns the house when records say otherwise? Her heart dropped. Another comment. I heard the house isn't even hers. Then another. Someone pulled the deed. Something doesn't add up. The color drained from her face as the words sank in. Spencer lowered his phone slowly, eyes narrowing at her. Alana, he said, voice steadied, controlled, but sharp enough to cut. Why does everyone say you don't own this house? Alana barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the comment section burned behind her eyelids. By morning, her phone was vibrating nonstop, a steady, angry pulse that made her chest tighten each time she reached for it. She stepped into the living room wearing the same oversized t-shirt she slept in, hair pulled into a loose bun, eyes swollen from hours of scrolling. Her email inbox was a battlefield. Cancellation notice, effective immediately. Partnership suspension. Unprofessional conduct review. We regret to inform you. 7 gigs gone before breakfast. She pressed her palm against her forehead, leaning on the kitchen counter for support. No, no, no. Her voice cracked as she opened one message after another. Each one cut deeper than the last. Spencer walked in quietly, already dressed for the day. He watched her from across the room, not with anger anymore, but with something heavier. Disappointment. Distance. Another one? He asked. She nodded, swallowing hard. The Abuja concert. They said they don't want the backlash. He exhaled slowly, sitting on the edge of the armchair. Alana, your image is everything. This kind of thing spreads faster than talent. His tone wasn't cruel. It was simply the truth. Her phone rang again. This time it was her PR manager. She answered with shaking fingers. Hello. The woman didn't waste time. Alana, I've been trying to reach you for 2 hours. This is getting out of control. I know, she whispered. No, you don't. Her PR manager's voice sharpened. Brands are backing away. Blogs are calling you volatile. Music platforms are muting your mentions. You're trending for all the wrong reasons. You need to fix your attitude fast. The manager snapped. This industry forgives a lot, but it doesn't forgive disrespect. People are saying you humiliated your own mother. Do you understand how damaging that is? A tightening sensation spread across Alana's chest. Shame crept under her skin like something crawling, uninvited and relentless. I'll figure it out, she mumbled. You need to do more than that, the manager replied. Call me when you're ready to take accountability publicly. The call ended before she could respond. She set the phone down on the counter, her breath unsteady. The reality of everything she'd built, the image she crafted, the persona she polished, was crumbling in real time. She had spent years pretending she was the perfect daughter, the perfect rising star, the perfect wife. Now, the world was peeling back layers she thought were sealed. Her phone buzzed again. She groaned and grabbed it, expecting another cancellation. Instead, her voicemail app opened on its own when her thumb slipped. A message from 2 months ago began to play. My voice. Soft, careful, tired, yet still full of love. Hi, baby. I watched your performance on that show. You looked beautiful. I'm proud of you. Always. The sound hit her like a blow to the chest. Her grip tightened, jaw trembling. She remembered the moment I left that message. She'd ignored it, didn't respond, didn't even listen. But hearing it now, after the milkshake, after the comments, after seeing the way I walked out without lifting my voice, it pierced through her in a way she couldn't shield herself from. Her breath broke. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. She pressed her hand over her mouth, as if that would stop the sound building in her throat. Shame rose up, thick and hot. For the first time since last night, she felt something heavier than fear of the public. Guilt. Deep, slicing guilt. Her shoulders shook as she wiped her face, trying to steady herself. She backed up toward the living room window, needing air even though the glass kept everything sealed. And then she froze. Outside, parked across the street, a large black SUV idled quietly, its engine low and steady, the windows tinted too dark to see inside. It wasn't there earlier. Alana's breath hitched. The SUV didn't move, didn't flash its lights, didn't signal. It simply waited. And something in her stomach tightened in a way that had nothing to do with music, fans, or canceled gigs. Something was coming. By late afternoon, the tension inside the Wright household had grown so thick Alana could feel it pressing against her skin. The black SUV across the street hadn't moved. Spencer kept glancing through the blinds. His parents whispered in tight circles, avoiding her eyes. Every time her phone buzzed, she jumped. She tried to distract herself, fixed her hair, changed her blouse, refreshed her feed, but nothing soothed the pounding in her chest. The comments online had gotten worse. Screenshots of the house deed rumor were spreading. People were tagging real estate pages to confirm ownership. Someone had even posted the street name, asking questions she didn't know how to answer. Then, at exactly the 24-hour mark, a sharp, deliberate knock sounded at the front door. 3 knocks. A pause. Then one more. Heavy. Official. Certain. Alana's breath caught. The room stilled. Spencer stepped forward, glancing at her. His silence was a warning all on its own. Mrs. Wright folded her arms tightly, and Mr. Wright straightened his back as if bracing himself for something unpleasant. The knock came again, firmer this time. Spencer opened the door. 4 uniformed property officers stood on the porch, documents in hand. They didn't look angry. They didn't look confused. They simply looked like men doing a job that didn't care who liked it. Good afternoon, the lead officer said. We're here for possession verification on behalf of the property owner. Alana blinked, the words hitting her like cold water. Possession what? The officer held up the sealed file. Verification for lease preparation. We're required to inspect the premises and confirm legal ownership details. Mrs. Wright frowned. There must be a mistake. This is our daughter-in-law's home. The officers didn't shift, didn't flinch. They simply waited for the moment they always see, the moment the truth begins to scratch through the facade. Alana stepped forward, planting her feet like someone trying desperately to maintain control. I own this house, she said, voice steady but thin at the edges. There's no reason for you to be here. The officer opened the file, flipping to the front page. Ma'am, he said calmly, this property is registered under the name Rosalind Carter. She submitted authorization for immediate lease preparation yesterday. This verification is mandatory. Every sound in the room seemed to collapse into silence. Alana tried to breathe, but her chest locked up. No, that's not. She gave me this house. She gifted it to me. That doesn't change legal ownership, the officer replied, tone professional, unmoved. You may reside here, but you do not own it. Mrs. Wright stepped back. Her face tightened in a way Alana had never seen before, mouth pinched, eyes sharp with judgment. Mr. Wright didn't look at her at all. He only adjusted his glasses and shook his head slowly, disappointment sinking into his posture. The officers stepped inside with clipboards and cameras, moving with practiced efficiency. Their boots echoed against the polished floors as they walked through the living room, hallway, and kitchen, documenting everything. Not touching, just verifying. Their presence felt like a spotlight she couldn't escape. Alana followed them in a daze, words tripping in her throat. This is my home. I've been living here since my wedding. That aligns with the authorization statement. The officer said, you were granted residence, not ownership. Each phrase cut deeper than the last. Spencer stood near the staircase, arms crossed, eyes locked on her. Not angry, not loud, but shaken in a way that made her stomach twist. The officers finished their initial sweep and returned to the entryway. "We'll file the verification tonight," the lead officer said. "You'll receive follow-up notices once leasing preparation begins." They nodded politely and stepped out, closing the door behind them with a quiet finality that felt heavier than a slam. Alana stood frozen in the middle of the living room, her ears ringing. Mrs. Wright inhaled sharply, folding her hands. "You told us you bought this house," she said, voice clipped and cold. Mr. Wright finally looked at her, not with anger, with disappointment, so deep it made her knees weaken. Spencer stepped closer, his expression unreadable. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't touch her. He just leaned in, his whisper cutting straight through her last defense. "You lied to us." The door had barely closed behind the officers when the Wright's silence shifted into something sharper. Mrs. Wright picked up her purse with stiff fingers, avoiding eye contact. Mr. Wright pressed his lips together, the way people do when they've swallowed their pride but can't keep it down. "We'll give you two some space," he said coolly. There was no goodbye, no softening, no attempt to mask the disgust settling into his voice. They walked out without looking back, each step echoing through the hallway like a verdict. Alana stood still, hands trembling. She could feel her world collapsing inward, piece by piece. The in-laws she spent years trying to impress, the people she tried to convince she was above her own mother, had just left her standing in the ruins of her own lies. Spencer remained inside, but he didn't speak, didn't sigh, didn't even touch her. He just walked upstairs quietly, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. For a moment, she thought he was leaving her too. Alana followed, heart pounding, but when she reached the bedroom, he wasn't packing his own things. He was folding some of hers. Slowly, methodically, not throwing, not slamming. That quietness made it worse. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Creating some space," he said without turning around. "We need clarity. I need clarity." She sat on the edge of the bed, air catching in her throat. This wasn't the explosive anger she expected. This was distance. This was detachment. And it terrified her more than shouting ever could. Spencer set a stack of her clothes aside, his movements precise. "You lied to me, to my parents, to the world. You said you bought this house." "I was going to," she murmured. "You said you did." He finally looked at her. "Those are not the same things." She felt the words landing like blows. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Everything with you goes too far," he said quietly. His voice wasn't sharp, just tired, a kind of tired she'd never heard from him before. Her phone buzzed on the dresser. She grabbed it instinctively, hoping for good news, a cancellation reversed, a supportive message, anything. It was worse than silence. A DM from the producer she had admired since she was 16, a man she dreamed of collaborating with, a man whose praise she imagined every night before bed. His message was short. "Saw the video. This is disappointing." No explanation. No room for discussion. Just an ending sentence to a door that would probably never open again. Her vision blurred. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her shirt, trying to keep herself together, but the humiliation crawled beneath her skin. Everything she thought she built through talent and charm was crumbling in less than 24 hours. She tried to take a shaky breath as Spencer continued quietly gathering clothes. Her phone buzzed again. This time, the name on the screen made her chest tighten. Mom. Alana froze, staring at the name she had ignored 100 times, the name she shouted at without remorse, the name she had drenched in milkshake in front of strangers. With trembling fingers, she hit call. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3, then voicemail. She tried again. This time, it didn't even ring. The line cut straight to voicemail, her mother's voice greeting her with a tone so gentle it sliced through her heart. She hung up abruptly, wiping her face again. Another attempt, blocked before connection. The realization sank in deep and cold. Her mother didn't want to hear her voice. Spencer placed a small duffel bag on the floor and stepped away, leaving space between them like something fragile had cracked. Alana sat there shaking, clutching her phone, scrolling through her chats. No comfort, no support, no one defending her. She opened a blank message to her mother. Her fingers moved fast, typing paragraphs, apologies, explanations, confessions, pleas, memories she suddenly remembered too clearly. Tears blurred the screen as she wrote. When she finished, her thumb hovered over send. Her breath hitched. Shame burned through her again. She hit delete. Every word vanished. Alana waited until the sound of Spencer's footsteps faded down the hallway before she let herself fall apart. The moment she knew he was out of earshot, she pressed both hands over her mouth and broke, quiet, muffled, desperate. Tears poured in heavy waves, spilling faster than she could wipe them away. Every piece of her life pressed down on her at once. The humiliation, the canceled gigs, the disappointed messages, the cold stares from her in-laws, the officers at her door, the realization that her entire image had snapped like thin glass. She slid from the bed to the floor, knees hitting the carpet as she tried to breathe through the ache swelling in her chest. It wasn't just fear anymore. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was the unfiltered truth she had spent years pretending she didn't hear. Her mother didn't deserve any of it. A soft memory rose in her mind, the kind that crawls in when walls are finally down. A moment she had buried, but tonight it pushed forward like it had been waiting to be seen again. She was 16. They were walking into an award ceremony for young performers. Rosalind had saved for months to buy her the glittery gold dress she'd begged for, stitching the hem herself the night before. Alana remembered turning around and seeing her mother smiling behind her, adjusting a strand of her hair like she still saw the little girl she used to carry on her hip. She pulled away sharply. "Mom, don't hug me here," she'd whispered sharply. "You're embarrassing me." She could still see the way Rosalind's face softened with hurt before she covered it with a practiced smile. "I'm sorry, baby," she said gently. Alana had forgotten that moment existed until now. The memory sliced through her, sharp enough to force another sob. She covered her face again, rocking slightly as the guilt settled deep in her stomach. The things she said, the things she erased, the pride she let grow like a vine choking everything good between them. Her phone buzzed beside her thigh. For one hopeful second, she thought it might be her mother. She grabbed it, hands shaking, breath shallow. A text notification popped up, not from Rosalind, but from a fan page posting another clip of last night. More strangers analyzing every second of her meltdown. More comments calling her ungrateful, spoiled, cruel. She tossed the phone across the carpet and buried her face in her palms. After minutes that felt like hours, she crawled toward the phone again, desperate for some type of grounding. The screen had gone dark. She tapped it. Her mother's contact was still pinned at the top, the thread with all her ignored messages, missed calls, and half-delivered apologies. Her breath trembled as she tapped the name. It rang once before sending her straight to voicemail. She tried again, straight to voicemail. A third time, blocked. Her chest squeezed like a fist had wrapped around it. She stared at the phone, wiping tears with the back of her hand. "Mom, please," she whispered to herself, pressing the screen as if she could push through the silence. She typed another message, shorter this time. "Rawr, Mom, please talk to me. Please." It showed delivered, but not read. She stared at those 2 gray marks like they were the walls of a prison she built herself. Behind her, the bedroom door opened quietly. Spencer stepped inside, his expression softer than it had been earlier, but still painfully distant. He crouched down in front of her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. She didn't look up. She was too ashamed to meet his eyes. He exhaled, a slow, tired sound. "Alana, you can't fix this through texts." She sniffed, shoulders trembling. "She won't answer me." "Because words over a screen won't undo what you've done," he said quietly. "Not this time." She finally lifted her eyes, swollen and red, searching his face for some version of hope. Spencer held her gaze, firm but not cruel. "You need to apologize face to face." Alana didn't wait until morning. The moment Spencer said those words, "You need to apologize face to face," something inside her broke open. She grabbed her coat with trembling hands, slipped on shoes without tightening them properly, and walked straight out the door. The night air hit her like a slap, sharp against her damp cheeks. She didn't care. Shame had already numbed everything else. The drive to my apartment felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the weight in her chest. Maybe it was knowing she didn't deserve forgiveness, but needed it anyway. When she reached the building, her hands shook so badly she had to hold the steering wheel another minute just to steady herself. She walked to my door slowly, breathing hard, wiping at her face with the sleeve of her coat. The hallway light flickered once, the sound echoing against the walls. She hesitated, then knocked. One soft knock. Another. Then she whispered my name, a voice too small to belong to the woman who humiliated me hours earlier. The door opened. I stood there in my robe, hair wrapped, face calm in a way that made Alana blink. She expected anger, maybe yelling, maybe a slammed door. But what she saw instead was quiet, the kind of quiet people where, when they've spent all their emotions and are now protecting whatever's left. She broke immediately. "Mom," her voice cracked. She covered her mouth with both hands as the tears came again. Uncontrollable. I didn't reach for her. I didn't step back either. I simply moved to the side and let her in. The door closed behind her with a soft click. She stood in the middle of my living room, crying so hard her shoulders shook. I walked to the table, poured a glass of water, and set it in front of her without saying anything. She reached for me out of instinct, but I took a slow step back. Her hand froze midair. "Mom," she whispered, choking on the word. "I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I don't know what came over me. She wiped her face again. "I messed up. I hurt you. I embarrassed you. I don't even know who I was last night. I listened, not coldly, not cruelly, but with the distance of someone whose heart had been bruised too many times by the same hands. She kept talking, pouring out all the words she had been holding back for years, the pressure from the industry, the need to look powerful, the fear of being seen as small, the desire to impress the rights. I took it out on you, she said finally, the one person who didn't deserve it. Another tear slipped down her cheek. Please say something. I took my time before speaking. When I finally did, my voice was steady. I blocked your number because I needed peace to think. I said, not because I stopped loving you. She nodded slowly, her mouth trembling. But love doesn't cancel consequences. I added. Her eyes widened a little. You hurt me publicly, Alana, in front of strangers, in front of people who laughed while you tore into me. I sat down across from her. So your apology can't hide in this room. It must travel the same road your humiliation walked. Her tears slowed, not because she'd stopped crying, but because the weight of what I said finally settled. You mean, she whispered, voice thin, I have to apologize publicly? I didn't nod. I didn't shake my head. I simply looked at her in a way that told her everything she needed to understand. This couldn't be fixed in one visit, not in one night, not in one conversation. She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting together like she was holding onto the last part of herself that hadn't fallen apart yet. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She wiped her face with the back of her sleeve, pulled it out, and unlocked it with trembling fingers. A new message from Spencer. The label wants a statement. The next morning arrived, without softness. Alana barely slept, her mind replaying my words again and again. Your apology must travel the same road your humiliation walked. She sat on her living room couch, the same couch she once bragged about to her followers, hands trembling as she set up her phone on the ring light. Spencer stood a few feet away, arms folded, watching quietly, not judging, not coddling, just ensuring she didn't run from the truth again. Her throat felt tight as she adjusted the camera. She could feel the weight of millions of eyes she couldn't see, waiting to see what shape her remorse would take. She glanced at the blank screen, inhaled, and pressed record. At first, no words came. She swallowed hard and began. My name is Alana Cartwright, she said softly, and I'm here because I did something wrong. Her voice wobbled, but she didn't cut the recording. She kept going, staring into the camera like she was staring into every mistake she ever tried to hide. I disrespected my mother, she continued. The woman who raised me, the woman who supported every dream I ever had. I humiliated her in public, and there is no excuse for that. Her breath caught, but she pushed through it. I want to acknowledge my mother's dignity, the dignity I ignored when I let my pride speak louder than the love she's always shown me. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. And I lied, she said, voice tightening. I lied about owning the house I live in. My mother owns it. She has always owned it. She allowed me and my husband to live there as a gift, not a transfer of ownership. The truth landed like a slow confession, dragging its own weight. It was wrong, she whispered. I tried to look bigger than I am, and instead, I made myself small. Her eyes filled again. I accept the consequences that come with my actions. The gigs I lost, the partnerships that pulled out, the disappointment from people I respect. I earned all of it. Her hands began shaking again, but she didn't stop the recording. And to my mother, her voice broke, but she caught herself. "I'm sorry. Not because people are watching, but because I hurt you. I hope you can forgive me one day." She inhaled shakily, pressed her lips together, and ended the video. For a moment, she just sat there, chest tight, vision blurry. Spencer stepped closer, but didn't touch her. He waited. Alana posted the video. Within seconds, comments flooded in faster than she could read them. This is what accountability looks like. You needed this wake-up call. Still disappointed, but proud of the apology. Your mother deserves so much better. Healing starts here. Others were harsher. Too late. You're only sorry because you got caught. Respect your parents. She tried to keep up, but the comments moved faster than her eyes. The words blurred, a mix of grace and condemnation, support and scolding. Her breathing grew unsteady. Her hands began to shake uncontrollably. She turned off comments. Spencer exhaled slowly, watching her clasp her hands together as if trying to hold herself still. "You did what you needed to do," he said quietly. She nodded, but her face stayed pale, the weight of the public's judgment sitting heavy on her shoulders. She sank deeper into the couch, exhaling a shaky breath. The house felt too quiet, too open, too exposed. Miles away, I sat at my kitchen table with my own phone in hand. The video played before me, my daughter crying, admitting her lies, acknowledging the truth I had carried alone for years. I listened without blinking, without shifting, letting every word settle. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I simply watched, breathing slow and steady, a warmth growing in my chest that I didn't name yet. I set the phone down gently and folded my hands. Outside my window, a shadow moved across the walkway. Then came a firm knock. Heavy, official, immediate. For officers. Final documentation. They had arrived. The knock at the Wrights' door wasn't loud this time. It was calm, final, the kind of knock that doesn't ask permission, only announces what's already in motion. Alana stiffened on the couch when she heard it. Spencer walked to the door slowly, shoulders squared, bracing himself for whatever was coming. When he opened it, the same 4 officers from the day before stood there, crisp uniforms, clipboards in hand. "Good afternoon," the lead officer said. "We're here to complete the final property verification." Alana's breath caught. Her hands trembled as she stood, her knees weak under the weight of everything that had led to this moment. Spencer stepped aside, allowing the officers to enter. They moved through the house with calm precision, not rushed, not emotional, simply documenting, confirming, finalizing. One officer checked the kitchen, snapping a photo of the appliances. Another walked upstairs, noting the condition of the bedrooms. A third measured the backyard, entryway. Every step echoed through the house like a countdown. With each click of the camera, each pen strike on the clipboard, Alana felt something inside her collapsing. Her entire life here, the dinners, the rehearsals, the late-night songwriting sessions, the photos she took to curate her perfect online life, all of it felt like smoke slipping through her fingers. The lead officer returned to the living room, flipping to the final page of his form. "Mrs. Wright," he said, tone calm but firm, "the verification is complete. The property will officially move into leasing preparation under the owner's authority." It hit her in the chest. Hard. She swallowed, but her voice refused to form words. That process will begin immediately, the officer added. You'll receive official notice regarding next steps. Next steps. It didn't have to be said. She knew what they meant. This wasn't her home. This had never been her home. She couldn't stay. The officers nodded courteously and walked out, closing the door with finality that felt like a full stop. Not a comma, not a pause. An ending. The silence afterward was suffocating. Alana stood in the center of the living room, staring at the framed photos she once used to show off her life. Her throat tightened until she felt it pulsing with every heartbeat. Pride, the thing she fed, protected, polished, crumbled inside her like old plaster falling from a wall. She covered her face with both hands, her breathing shallow, chest trembling. Spencer walked toward her. His steps were slow, deliberate, but not cold. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steady but heavy with truth. I'm still here, he said quietly. I still love you. She inhaled sharply, tears slipping down her cheeks. But I'm disappointed. Alana, deeply. This didn't have to happen. His words didn't cut. They sank. Slow. Heavy. Unavoidable. She looked up at him, eyes red, voice cracking. I never meant for it to go this far. I know, he said, but intention doesn't erase impact. She leaned into his chest, crying silently as he wrapped his arms around her, not protectively, but with the weight of someone holding a mirror up to her heart. When she pulled away, her gaze drifted around the house again. Every corner felt colder now. Every room felt hollow, like the walls themselves had stopped recognizing her. Her pride, the fierce, stubborn pride that fueled her rise and justified her cruelty, had nothing left to stand on. She wiped her face with both hands, shaking slightly. Her voice came out small, barely above a whisper. I can't lose her, she said. Not like this. Spencer watched her carefully, not pushing, not advising, just holding the space open for honesty. Alana pressed a trembling hand to her chest, feeling something break open inside her. Not guilt alone, not fear alone, something deeper, something she had ignored for years. She took a slow, shaky breath. Then, in a voice stripped of every ounce of pride, she whispered the truth she could no longer run from. I need to see my mom again. Alana didn't drive, Spencer offered, but she shook her head, insisting she needed to feel every second of this walk, the air, the weight, the consequences. The Heritage House stood at the end of the quiet street like it always did, warm light spilling through the curtains, the front porch still holding the memories of every birthday, every holiday, every morning I stood waiting for her school bus. But tonight, the house felt different, not angry, not distant, just waiting. She climbed the steps slowly, each one heavier than the last. When she reached the door, she hesitated, then knocked with a trembling hand. I opened the door before she could knock again. Alana froze when she saw me. No makeup, house slippers, a cardigan wrapped around my shoulders. The same calm she saw last night, except this time, there was something softer beneath it. Mom, she whispered. I stepped aside, letting her in without a word. The moment the door closed, she broke. Completely. She dropped to her knees on the hallway rug like her legs couldn't hold the weight of the last 24 hours anymore. Tears poured freely, her shoulders shaking as she buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry, she sobbed. Mom, I am so sorry. I didn't rush to her. I didn't lift her up. I just stood there, letting her spill everything she'd been holding in, the shame, the regret, the fear of losing everything she thought she controlled. She looked up at me through tears, voice cracking. I ruined everything. I didn't just hurt you, I disrespected you. I treated you like you were small. I lied. I pretended your sacrifices didn't matter. I lost everything. I stepped closer, sitting on the small bench by the stairs. She crawled to me on her knees, resting her hands on my lap like a child seeking shelter. I brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Not tenderly, not coldly, just honestly. You didn't lose the house, I said, my voice steady. You lost your humility. Her breath hitched. You lost the part of yourself that remembered where you came from. You lost the respect that should have lived in your heart long before fame ever touched your name. She lowered her head, sobbing again. And you made me apologize for years, I continued, just so I could keep a place in your life. Her tears slowed for a moment, not from stopping, but from realizing the truth of it. Every apology she forced out of me, every moment she looked embarrassed by me, every time she silenced me in public, she finally saw it. Mom, she whispered, throat raw. I didn't know. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I rested my hands on her shoulders, grounding her. I stayed silent, I said, because I didn't want to lose the only child I had. Her face crumpled again, as if those words scraped straight through her chest. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against my lap, crying harder than before, the kind of crying that comes from truth, not fear. For the first time in years, the distance between us cracked open. A small opening. A beginning. Healing didn't rush in. It didn't bloom like something magical. It came slow, inch by inch, like a door being pushed open by tired hands. I stroked her back gently, letting her release everything she had swallowed for years. Minutes passed in silence. Not the cold kind. The necessary kind. When she finally sat up, her eyes were swollen, lashes clumped together with tears. She wiped her face with her sleeve, breathing unevenly. Mom, she whispered, voice trembling, can I stay here with you, even just for tonight? I helped her off the floor, gently, guiding her toward the couch like she was made of something fragile. She held onto my hand, as if letting go meant she might fall again. When she sat down, she tried to wipe her face, but the tears kept coming, softer now, not violent, just steady. Mom, she whispered again, can I stay here tonight? Just tonight. I sat beside her, folding my hands in my lap. She leaned toward me, expecting the embrace she grew up running into. For years I gave it freely, even when her attitude cut deeper than she realized. But tonight required something different, something she wouldn't understand immediately. Alana, I said softly, I love you. I've always loved you. Nothing about that has changed. She nodded quickly, almost too quickly, her eyes bright with hope. But I continued gently, you need your own space to grow. The hope faltered. She blinked, confused. Mom, I said I was sorry. I'm trying. I know, I said, keeping my voice calm, and I see that. But growth doesn't happen if you come back here and hide from the consequences. You need a place that belongs to you, a place where you learn who you are without pretending or performing. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Her shoulders dropped, her breath shaky. I'm not turning you away, I added, I'm helping you stand. The shift in her eyes told me she finally understood this wasn't punishment. It was direction. The next morning, we visited a quiet apartment complex not far from her husband's job. The manager recognized her immediately, the once rising artist whose apology video touched every corner of the internet, but she treated her with dignity, speaking gently as we toured the small one-bedroom space. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't grand, but it was hers. Alana walked through the room slowly, her fingers tracing the edges of the plain white walls as if learning the shape of humility for the first time. Spencer stood beside her, silent but present, carrying her bag, adjusting a window shade, checking outlets, not as a man abandoning his wife, but as a man who expected her to rebuild the right way. I'll help with whatever you need, he told her quietly, but you have to do the work. She nodded, swallowing hard. I will. We completed the paperwork together, not with fanfare, not with triumph, with quiet acceptance. When she signed the lease, her hands didn't shake. For the first time in days, something like steadiness returned to her posture. After we dropped her things off, she asked to stop at my home one more time, not to move in, but because she wanted to see it differently. Inside, the house felt warm again. Not heavy, not tense, just home. I handed her a small framed picture. Her at age 4, missing front teeth, flour on her cheeks from helping me bake cookies. She stared at it for a long moment, her thumb brushing the edge of the frame. I forgot I ever looked this happy, she said quietly. You were, I replied, and you can be again. She lifted her eyes to mine, something soft flickering there, something I hadn't seen since she was a child. I walked to the living room wall and hung the photo in a small, empty space I'd left years ago but never filled. A reminder, not of pain, but of gentler times, of possibility, of who she could still become. Alana watched me hang it, tears forming again, but softer than before, tears made of understanding, not regret. When it was time for her to leave, she stepped onto the porch slowly. The sun was setting, washing her face in gold, catching on the last streaks of dried emotion along her cheeks. She turned to me, voice trembling but clear. Thank you, she whispered, for not giving up on me. The next morning, sunlight settled over the Heritage House in a warm, softened glow, the kind of light that fills a place with quiet promise. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch, breathing in the stillness that followed the storm of the last 24 hours. The air felt different now, lighter, calmer, no longer tangled with humiliation or panic, just peace. For the first time in years, the house felt like mine again. Not because Alana had been pushed out, but because the truth had finally taken its rightful place in the center of everything. I rested my hand on the porch railing, the old wood warm beneath my palm, and let the stillness steady me. Inside, the clock ticked softly, marking a new morning. There were no officers at the door, no frantic calls, no developers waiting for signatures. Everything that needed to unfold had unfolded, not through anger, not through vengeance, through alignment, the truth being restored exactly where it belonged. I walked back inside, the floorboards creaking beneath my slippers. On the dining table sat the old family Bible I'd kept tucked away for years, its leather edges worn, pages soft from generations of fingers turning them. I opened it gently to the center, where there was just enough room for something small. The homemade dessert recipe, the very one I baked for Alana the night she threw Milkshake on me, lay folded on the counter. A simple piece of paper, smudged from years of use. Once a gesture of love that had been thrown to the floor. Now a symbol of something far quieter. Growth, boundary, understanding. I placed it carefully inside the Bible, letting the pages close over it like a hand covering a wound that had finally begun to heal. A soft vibration buzzed from the table. My phone. I picked it up slowly. A new voice note from Alana. For a moment, I held it without pressing play. Not out of fear. Not out of hurt. Out of reverence. For her journey, for mine, for this season of repair that needed gentleness more than speed. I tapped it. Her voice came through soft, strained, but steady, the voice of someone who had been humbled and rebuilt at the same time. Mom, I'm going to be better. I promise. Not perfect, not overnight, but better. Thank you for giving me the chance to try. I closed my eyes briefly, letting the warmth settle into the cracks shame had carved. Her voice wasn't desperate anymore. It wasn't defensive. It was honest. It was the girl I raised, the woman she was becoming. I walked toward the doorway again, standing where the light hit my face. The house behind me hummed with the quiet strength of generations, like it understood what had shifted inside its walls. I pressed the phone to my chest for a moment before raising it and recording a reply. My voice carried a softness that only truth could grant. You'll reap what you sow, I said, and so will I. Not a threat, not a warning, a promise of growth, a promise of responsibility, a promise of love that didn't break, it evolved. I sent the voice note and lowered my hand, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. Outside, a breeze drifted across the yard, rustling the leaves the way memories rustle through a heart, gently, without ripping anything open. I stepped back into the doorway, resting my hand against the frame, letting myself feel the fullness of the moment. Not victory, not revenge, closure, quiet and earned. The camera of life zoomed out in my mind, me standing in the threshold of my regained home, sunlight cutting across the floor behind me, the world calm again, full circle, growth, boundary, grace, a quiet cinematic fade, the kind that doesn't shout its ending. It simply breathes.